This is True Crime Kent.
And we are back. Episode 2 of Belle Gunness. Op, how you feeling? I know you're happy about this story because there's not really a lot of weird sexual stuff in it, at least that we know of, because this happened in the early 1900s.
Yeah, I'm enjoying. I don't know. I'm probably in the minority, but I like it when the story is punctuated with horrible things. Like my soul takes a beating when the whole story is just horrible thing, and there's no.
Yeah.
But see, that's why I stay on this podcast, because if it was just horrible thing from the moment we recorded to the end, I probably couldn't do it. But somehow you tell the tale of the horrible thing, and so even though, like, I think at this point my mind has written its own hymn book of new hymns because I ran out.
What would you say the worst episode that we've ever recorded for you has been?
Catherine Knight was bad, but for me, the egregious use of the C word, I was like, okay. But
you don't like the word cunt?
I think what it was I think mine was a business one, though, actually, is the whole time we were doing Catherine Knight, I'm thinking about Mike Boudet Patreon saying, in no certain terms, you used the C word one time. We didn't like the way you said it, so say goodbye to all of your 15,000 patrons. And they just killed his business. I think that's what it was for me, is like, I've always kind of got a business radar going on what we're talking about. Even though we talk about weird things, I'm always like, I wonder if this one's going to do it.
Yeah.
Also, my soul is saying that all the time. It's like, I wonder if this is the one that's going to break me.
Yeah, I was really acting like a cunt in that episode. So I'm sorry.
Hey, you know.
Sorry if I stress you out, Op. I thought you would say Joseph Callinger, honestly. That's what I was, or Joseph Callinger or Pee Wee Gaskins.
Well, the last couple have, yeah, for me, they've been like pretty heavy.
Well, when we left Belle Gunness, she'd already gotten away with a few murders, and she had just moved into a nice new farm there in LaPorte, Indiana. Is it LaPorte?
Probably LaPorte.
LaPorte.
And I wonder if it's, like, I've heard it both ways. Do you think it's Gunness or Gunness? Belle Gunness. Gunness.
Yeah.
Gunness sounds
Gunness.
more like a
Well, you're not
Marine
saying it right. It's Gunness.
Yeah, Gunness.
Yeah.
All right.
She had just moved to LaPorte, Indiana with her new boo, Peter Gunness. That's where she got her last name. She's figured out, not really perfected, but figured out the insurance scam scheme. Get life insurance on them and kill them. Pretty simple. They don't do a lot of investigating. We don't know what a clitoris is. At the time, I don't know. Were we still thinking that everything was moved off of, what did they think?
Humors. Off the humors?
Off the humors?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is long past that. That was, 100 years prior?
I have to say, I'm a bit sad that clitoris is a term that means what it means, because I think had it not been defined as a woman's part of her genitalia, it's a beautiful girl name.
It is.
Clitoris. Hey, clitoris.
Yeah, it sounds like a space flower.
Like, there's a whole bunch of words that I think would be great female, like women names, like gasoline.
Yeah.
You know, gasolina. Clitoris.
So you wish that we had named it like an uglier word?
Yeah, like if it was like Dronkstenst, then that would free up clitoris to be a beautiful girl name that was used in the 1800s that, you know, everyone.
What was the word you just used?
Dronkstenst.
I could just trying to picture that in the, oh yeah, man. Yeah, that's my Dronkstens.
Yeah, Dronkstens.
Yeah, lick my Dronkstens.
Dronkstens. Or like Benenstity.
Yeah, baby.
Like Benenstity.
Flick your tongue across my Dronkstens.
Get me in the goyle-flay. Goyle-flay. See, there's so many words that haven't been made up yet that really we could have used for like describing genitalia. Or if you want one that's like a little more attractive, not quite as like sounding like medieval, maybe you could go with like plipstidst, plipston. I feel like
kind of hot.
too many of our words have too many vowels. We could start using some that don't have as many.
Oh, yeah, baby. That's my plipstons.
Plipston.
Oh,
yeah.
It's the one with the little flesh beanie on.
You kicked me in the plipston.
That's my
See,
plipston.
and then that frees up clitoris to be like, clitoris, come over here, check it out. Somebody just kicked me in the plipston.
Even though Peter Gunness had just lost his daughter, Jenny, he did push on. I don't know what I meant by that. There's not really any other options. Let's keep going or, well, don't.
Yeah.
Turn the game off.
Yeah. No.
Rage quit.
Right.
I mean, that's really right. That's what being killed is. That's God turning the game off. Like when your mom's like, no, you're going to bed now.
Yeah.
Pulls the power cord.
Yep. It's funny, too. You think about some of the more dangerous, like intense ways of somebody dying. It kind of is. God does use the same approach because oftentimes, like you think about it, you die in a car wreck. It is God going up, down, left, right, left, right.
Yeah. God, I was on my way to a party.
Up, down, left, right.
Bad now.
She had to be identified by her plipston.
Had a very distinct and elongated plipston. She clearly had taken steroids. You ever seen a steroid plipston?
Yeah. That definitely brings to light the fact that when you look at, if you take away the skin layer and you look at female genitalia and male genitalia, there are a lot of similarities. We're just
it starts looking like a gaginga.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, a gaginga next to the dronston. Clitoris one time, she was like, check out my dronstantly. And I was like, that looks a lot like my bloist. And we were like, kalukale. And we chortled in our joy.
We're accidentally inventing a whole new language.
It's fun.
If we keep this joke running long enough, we
could redo the whole body.
Yeah.
And maybe car parts, too, while we're at it. We're freeing up a bunch of lady names, and that's what I'm excited about.
I kind of do that at AutoZone anyway. When, I come across the part, it's the fucking manifold receiving gasket.
Yeah.
Somehow they just start typing.
And and then it shows the part. It's like the smartest search engine.
Yeah.
I need headlight fluid. And they're like, all right, well, what you need is.
Now, Peter did start helping Belle run the farm along with their other children. Belle and Peter were often seen in town selling produce and cattle. They just look like two people out in these streets, madly in love, moving that motherfucking corn rock and pushing those sweet peas. Just two people in love out in the streets, moving them veggies. 3 a.m. in the morning on Tuesday, December 16th, 1902. This is just 4 months after getting married. Belle's neighbors, the Nicholsons, they're asleep in bed when they start hearing a loud banging at the front door. The father, his name was Swan Nicholson, he opens the door in his PJs and finds 12-year-old Jenny Gunness, Belle's daughter, standing there holding a fire poker. She tells Swan that her father has been badly burned and that her mother had sent her to send for them for help. She wanted them to come help. And this is a uniquely early 1900 situation. Like, imagine the same scenario in 2024, now that we have cell phones and the internet. They would just, the Nicholsons would just pull out their phone and start recording Jenny there on the porch while she cries, and the Nicholson kids would be fucking dabbing behind her. Why ain't you call a doctor, ho? Dead ass. Anyways, Swan and his young son, Albert, they rush to the house, and there they find Belle sitting in the kitchen crying. Newly married Peter Gunness is wearing a long white nightshirt, and he's laid out face down in the parlor in a pool of his own blood.
What's White Knight's shirt? Is that like a
Did I say
part
white
of an organization?
Not,
See, like part of the
it is
KKK?
down here in the South.
Yeah.
What would you like? What outfit would you like to die in?
Oh, I'd probably like to be in what outfit? I don't know. Probably part of a.
God, I hope it's not the one you're in.
I think I'd probably
that
like to.
Sweatshirt is horrible.
part of the Formula One team or something really cool if I had to pick an outfit to be like part of Formula One maybe, or like a mountain climbing troop.
I always feel like scrubs look super comfy. Like, I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't mind dying in a set of scrubs.
All I care about really is that my clothes stay on me. Like, I don't want to be like naked, accidentally naked. Shoes can fly off. That's fine.
Let me ask you this, and this is something that I really do sometimes, and I don't know why. After you get out of the shower, do you quickly get dressed because you start worrying what if there's an earthquake or something?
No, never. I've never, ever.
Jess does do that. I do that. I don't know why. It's like while I'm getting dressed, I'm like, I don't want to just die in my underwear or butt naked. So I start just in the event of an earthquake, which, by the way, super common in Kentucky.
Yeah, I can see that. I was going to say maybe it's like wired into both of your parenting DNA. Like, you know that you need to be the leaders, so you can't be caught with your pants down. I don't do that. One thing I do, and I think I don't know what it's attributed to, but I get out of the shower and I'll like put the towel on my head and I'll kind of dry my hair with the towel, and then I just kind of leave the towel on there like I'm hiding from the world for a second. I just like being in that towel for a minute. And I'm sure it looks really bad to the outside world.
Podcasting has done to you.
Like, it looks like an albino Ethiopian standing there hiding, just me in my gut with the towel. It's a big towel, but it looks small on me. It's just hiding.
Look, I just know that I wouldn't want to go out. I wouldn't want to leave this world wearing those long white nightgowns that everybody slept in back then. That you know what I'm talking about? Those like Ebenezer Scrooge learning the true meaning of Christmas clothes.
Yeah. That the sleeping cap with the ball on it. Like, what are you thinking?
Why did that exist anyway? Like, I've never been laying in bed like, this is comfortable, but it'd be way more comfortable with a Cabela's hat.
I wish I had a puff ball that was like stuck to my nose while I slept.
Or making my head roll off to one side because I keep laying on it.
Have you ever seen any of those tragic videos where somebody's died, they got run over by a car or something, and the outfit stands out in your mind, like what they were wearing?
I mean, anytime I saw somebody die, they were usually wearing the same outfit.
Oh, oof. I remember one time there was a lady and she was killed by like a car. And so she's just a mess all over the road. And she had black leather pants on and like a sequin shirt. And I was like, the gore was one thing, but just seeing the outfit she picked, I couldn't stop thinking, yeah, she got ready for this to happen. Like she got
to wear that for all eternity.
Yeah, like this was the one she was like, this is my going out outfit, and literally went out, Sometimes I think about her.
Well, how long ago did that happen?
I just watched it this morning.
Oh.
I think, there will be a time where we all look back and we're like, oh, she was wearing sequins? What? What's that all about?
The back of her, it says bootylicious on her butt. Imagine... Nobody's ever been... We don't talk about that enough with ghosts. You imagine it would not be scary if you were haunted by a ghost that had a sweats on that said bootylicious.
Yeah. Or like imagine dying in a YOLO shirt. Like that would be the most ironic ghost ever. Boo. And you're like, what the heck? You're a loser.
Yes,
Are you a
did.
loser? Are you a loser in the spirit world too?
Damn, bro.
You do too much.
Stumble down the hall. You don't even know what they said because they mumbled it.
There's ghost holes punched in the wall later.
Yeah. You can only see him when the aura of his existence passes by him. You can't even fix that. They don't sell ghost drywall at fucking Lowe's.
His aura passes through and you're like, I smell Dr. Thunder. I smell Monster. Why do I smell Monster?
Smell Prime.
Juke.
That's what all the kids are drinking now because that's the cool kid drink.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Logan Paul, that's why.
So Swan, he orders his young son Albert. He finds Peter spread out on the floor here, laying in his blood. And he orders his young son, Albert. He says, run into town and get Dr. Bo Bowell. That's the doctor's name, Bo Bowell.
Wow.
Who was the county coroner. He says, go get Dr. Bowell, bring him back here. This is 3 a.m. When Dr. Bowell arrives to the Gunness home a little over an hour later, he starts examining the body. And he determines that Peter has actually been dead for quite some time. This isn't sudden. Rigor mortis was already setting in.
Okay.
Also, on the back of Peter's head, he discovers a very deep cut that we will later learn actually cracked his skull, and his nose was broken. Wow. Now, like I said, Dr. Bell finds us. He immediately starts suspecting murder. So he has Belle sit down in the kitchen. She's like, well, what happened? And at first, while putting on the best performance of her life through crocodile tears, Belle said this. She claimed that her and Peter had been in the parlor at around 11 the night before. So this happened at 3 a.m, about 4 hours prior. At 11, they had been in the parlor. And Peter had gotten up. His feet were cold. He got up to go get his slippers from the kitchen by the stove. He always left his slippers there to keep them warm. And I get that. We had an old wood-burning stove at my grandparents' house, and I loved that thing. I know it's very, like, backwoods having a wood-burning stove in the last 30 years, but I love putting crowns on it and watching them melt.
Yeah.
Country fun.
You know, one thing I learned, I didn't know this, but you know how, like, those wood stoves like that, they always had a pot, water on top of it?
Yep.
I always thought, oh, that's so that, you know, they've got coffee or tea at the ready. No, it's to keep the room humid. I didn't know that.
And there's nothing I love more than relaxing, laying down and watching a TV in a good, hot, humid room.
Yeah.
If my back ain't sweating while I'm laying on the couch, I'm not interested in watching it. She says that while she was sitting there, so Peter went to fetch his slippers, and while she's sitting there in the parlor, she heard a large smack and crashing noise. And she ran into the kitchen to investigate, and it was there that she found Peter with burns all over his neck and face, and he was rubbing the back of his head. According to her, Peter told her that he had reached down to get his slippers when the meat grinder that was on the shelf above the oven fell off on its own and hit him in the back of the head.
Oh.
And when it hit him in the back of the head, it knocked a bowl of hot brine that was on the stove off as well and knocked it onto his neck and face and burned him.
And he vocalized all this.
He vocalized all of it, yeah.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Now, Belle claimed that at the time she tried to help him, but he insisted he was okay. He was okay. Not worry about it. So Belle just went to bed. She went to bed and woke up a few hours later around 2:30, went downstairs because Peter wasn't in bed with her, and found him down there laying in his blood on the floor dead.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah. Not a very convinced. I mean, even if like the Make-A-Wish Foundation did like make a person with Down syndrome a detective for a date, he'd be like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You're a fucking liar.
Stop it.
Just standing there with his notepad and a big crown. That is bullshit, lady.
Nope. Oh my gosh.
Eating a piece of toast. They did. Is this the one?
This might be the one.
I've noticed in the past that, you know, I make a lot of inappropriate jokes regarding race and sexuality and religion, just about everything. But the one that always never fails to get me hate messages is when I make a joke about Down syndrome. I don't know why people, and I don't know why people get so mad because so few of our audience has Down syndrome. So when they send me that, all I think to myself is, this is bullshit.
It's weird to think about that for a second. It's weird to think that do you think you've ever gotten an email from the listener who had Down syndrome? Like, think about that for a second.
Never.
I mean, I've gotten somewhere I'm like, that person might. Like I thought about it.
They wrote it on the screen with a crown and then couldn't figure out how to send it.
Jeez. Oh, man.
How the fuck do I get this thing out of here? An autopsy was performed later that day.
Jeez.
And Dr. Bell found no burns on Peter Gunness's entire body. There wasn't a single burn on him. Not one. Now, this story isn't over, by the way. The people of LaPorte immediately started thinking this whole meat grinder thing, falling on his head and killing him, this is fucking stupid. Plus, on top of that, Peter Gunness was if you look at pictures of him, not a bad-looking dude, fairly young, capable, fit, healthy man. They don't understand how something like this could kill somebody. I guess we didn't have an understanding of a head trauma, and it doesn't matter if you can bench press 315 12 times. If you catch a large, heavy steel object to the back of your fucking dome, doesn't matter how much protein powder you drink a day. But with that aside, eventually the district coroner declared that Peter had been, in fact, murdered after getting the autopsy results back and finding out there's no burns, like all this is off. Something's off. And therefore, a coroner's jury was instructed to investigate through an inquest.
Sounds official.
It is official. It's like the do we need to take this to trial thing. On December 18th, 1902, is an inquest the same as a trial?
It's, no.
It's like a
preliminary
little brother to the trial, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like what we'd have now as a grand jury. You know, they determine whether or not there's merit to it going to trial.
If it would hold up in court.
Yep.
Well, on December 18th, 1902, there was an inquest. And on this, Belle Gunness gave a similar story, but did tweak some things and change some stuff up to account for the questions.
What's crazy is, like, you're mentioning, I'm reading this as I'm reading my version because I know your script is much more intense and full of jokes, and mine's just sort of framework. But I can tell at this point, like, I can tell in your script that you're you're struggling to not talk about the significance of 1902 and how coins in circulation during 1902 it was like very intense time. It's one that we've never really experienced before. We were about to see a complete sea change in coinage in 1902. Right then, there was the Indian head penny. You had the Liberty head nickel, also known as the V nickel, naturally. The Barber dime, a unique quarter, a $50 was the Morgan silver dollar.
One of my favorites.
All of these were about to be refaced with new things. And I could tell that, like, you were trying to figure out where that fits in the conversation.
So let's just shoehorn it in.
I think this is probably the place to do that. This was, for those that are listening, not only is this a unique time in Belle Gunness's life, but in numismatics, it stands alone, really, if we think about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So glad we figured out how to get that in there. So, I mean, the quarter alone, probably a whole podcast just on the 1902 quarter.
Not this one, though.
Yeah.
Time and place for everything.
Yep.
What you haven't learned. 70 episodes? We're 75 episodes, 70 something. Almost 100. We're nearing 100 episodes. You haven't figured out the time and place for everything.
I just feel it's like lubricant. It's like history lubricant. You could be talking about anything, and if you bring up the significance of the coins of the time, it's like KY for history. Coins are KY.
Well, speaking of lubricant,
yeah.
December 18th, 1902, at the inquest, Belle Gunness. You don't like that? You don't like where I interrupted you?
No,
with a segue that's completely unrelated to what you were talking about?
I was really excited to see how you were going to segue in, and it's that's what that was. I was like, can't wait to see this magician work his magic.
You're bullshit. December 18th, 1902, at the inquest, Belle Gunness gives a similar story, but not exactly the same. She tweaked the story to account for some of the questions the police had. She says that, what really happened? At around 10 p.m. that night, I put the children to bed, like I always do, and then I went down to the kitchen to stuff some sausage casings with pork.
Yeah.
And that was the terms Belle Gunness used for fucking.
That's gross.
I'm kidding. I made that up. She's actually just making sausage. I'm a little stinker. So she's stuffing sausage casings with pork. And after finishing the sausage, she washed her meat grinder. That's what she called her vagina. I'm kidding again. I'll keep stinking it up. I'm a little devil.
You are.
After finishing the sausage, she washed her meat grinder, and then she put it on the shelf there above the stove. And at 11 p.m., she says she joined Peter in the parlor where he was reading a newspaper, relaxing, winding down for the night.
Peter in the parlor with a paper?
Peter in the parlor with a paper. He was exhausted from picking peppers.
And she had just finished preparing pork? Preposterous.
She had just finished poking pork. At 11 p.m., she joined Peter in the parlor where he was picking pickled peppers.
It sounds like a terrible game of Clue. Okay.
He was reading a newspaper. They sat for a moment, she says. He called her Mama, and she called him Papa. And I didn't make that up. That's actually what they called each other. She says, well, Papa, it's time for bed, I believe. And she said Peter agreed. Belle stayed in the parlor for a moment. Peter got up to go get his slippers by the stove where they were supposed to be staying warm. And when he reached down, the meat grinder just fell off the shelf above his head and hit him in the back of the noggin. It also knocked over a bowl of hot brine on the stove, which fell on Peter's neck and caused a bunch of burns.
Okay.
Now, Belle had been planning to use the brine to make head cheese. And head cheese is also what Belle Gunness called smegma. Kidding again. Sorry, I'm a little stinker. Can't help myself.
I know.
According to Belle, Peter insisted that he was fine. He just banged up a little bit. So they both went back into the parlor where they sat together for a while just to make sure he was okay, make everything okay. And she claimed that trying to explain, well, because when they did the autopsy, there was no burns.
Yeah.
No burns. She said, well, after that, we went into the parlor and I treated his burns with a combination of Vaseline and baking soda, which stops them. And I don't think that's how, even today, 2024, we don't have a medical treatment that can do that.
Nope. No. Nopey, nope. That's how you make cookies.
Did you know that fish skin is good for burns?
Yeah. Yep. Actually, I've got a person in my family that had burns, and they had skin grafts and fish skin.
They accidentally grafted on fish skin?
Well, they use the skin. They do a skin graft, but then they use fish skin to protect the wound. It's not. They don't actually graft fish skin onto the person. Fish skin is used to as a covering to protect the wound, keeps it hydrated, all kinds of stuff. But
it's 2024. Well, our point is Vaseline and baking soda sure it's not gonna cure a burn.
No.
In 2 hours.
Nope.
She says 2 hours after the accident at 1 a.m, Peter fell asleep on the couch in the parlor there, and that's when she decided, go upstairs. It's time for bed. He seems to be fine. She says about an hour and a half later at around 2:45, while she was laying in bed, she started hearing yelling. It was Peter Gunness was yelling, "Mama!" from downstairs in the parlor, yelling for her. She ran downstairs to find him complaining of a horrible headache and saying he was gonna die. That's when Belle, according to her, woke Jenny up, their daughter, or her adoptive daughter, and told Jenny, hey, go to the neighbors, get some help. And while Jenny was gone to the neighbors, according to Belle, Peter looked at her and said, quote, "Oh, Mama, I guess I'm gonna die." And then he died.
I doubt it.
He was like, "Oh, Mama, I guess I'm gonna die."
I can just see it. It sounds like that one song that was really popular in the 70s. Hey, Mama Gunness, I'm gonna die.
We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun.
I was trying to make Betty Davis eyes into a Belle Gunness Gonna Die song, but it didn't. You're going to have to cut that because it didn't work.
Gunness did not have Betty Davis eyes. She had hog head eyes.
Head cheese eyes.
Belle, with this news story, was somehow, I don't know how, don't ask me, was able to convince the authorities that she was innocent.
Wow.
And then Peter's death was officially listed as an accident, despite the fact that none of this makes any fucking sense. She completely changed her story, and they bought it. They were like, oh, well, now the story makes sense. This is open and shut. Why didn't you just tell us that the first time?
Yeah, no.
On Friday, December 19th, 1902, the next day, they had poor Peter Gunness's funeral service there in the parlor of the Gunness farmhouse, and then buried him in the Patton Cemetery. Now, his funeral and the service and everything, Peter's funeral, the rites were conducted there by Reverend George C. Moore. And that, ironically, was the same man that had actually married Peter and Belle and Peter just 8 months earlier.
Huh.
And reverends love it when they see a marriage go the distance. Many attendees of the service noted that Belle Gunness was one of the worst actresses to ever live, and that her crying was incredibly unconvincing. And this is clearly long before we bear witness to Kristen Stewart.
She's got to be the worst.
She was also seen several times. Belle was looking through her fingers to see if everybody there was noticing how distraught and heartbroken she was. And my 4-year-old does this. And that's when I know she's full of shit. Turns out, Belle Gunness had a life insurance policy on Peter Gunness.
What do you know?
And that life insurance paid out a total of $2,500 to Belle Gunness, which would be equivalent today to $72,000.
Wow.
May 1903, 5 months after Peter Gunness is murdered, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
43-year-old Belle Gunness gives birth to Peter's only son, Philip. So this is 5 months after he dies. She claims she was pregnant the whole time. She claims that the baby was Peter. She had been impregnated by Peter, both the person and the organ. Before his death, obviously. This would be a way more interesting story if it happened after his death. But I say give birth all smart-assy for one reason. When the midwife arrived to help her give birth, the baby boy had already been born and was clean and wearing new clothes. Turns out this baby was like 3 days away from getting a job down at the Piggly Wiggly. The midwife noticed that the baby seemed way too old to be a newborn. And on top of that, just a few hours after giving birth, Belle was in the backyard hanging laundry.
Yeah. Nah.
The day after that, one day after giving birth, she was seen working the farm, wrestling around with the pigs in their pig pen, all that stuff.
I don't understand. I've said it before. I don't understand how some people get away with stuff. Like, why is there no one to ask questions?
Oh, there was another thing about this whole baby being born thing. Probably the biggest, arguably, is that nobody in town, none of the neighbors of anything ever recall Belle looking pregnant.
Oh.
But to be fair, this is a linebacker of a woman. This is just a CeeLo green.
Wow.
So that is explainable to a certain degree. After she murdered Peter and got away with it, Belle just kind of went along business as usual at the farm. Took about all the chores on the farm by herself, planting the seeds, growing the vegetables and the fruits, picking and raising livestock, butchering the livestock, the whole 9 yards. Everything. Did it by herself. Meanwhile, the whole fucking town, as well as all her neighbors, hated her now because they all suspected she had murdered Peter. On top of that, she burned the bridges with her neighbors because disputes kept arising between Belle and them because she couldn't seem to keep control of her own cattle and pigs. They kept getting out and onto the neighbors' lawns and property and eating their grass and tearing shit up. One neighbor actually got sick of this and ended up basically taking some of her cattle hostage until she would pay him $1 for letting them get loose again.
Well, she was really busy having fake babies and killing people.
That's fair.
So
that's fair. Stuffing casings with sausage. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot going on.
A lot.
Now, infuriated by being blackmailed here, basically. That's not blackmail. That's just holding the animal hostage. Belle did pay it, the $1. But a few days later, she noticed that one of his cattle had got out. Wasn't on her property, but it was in the road. So she went and broke off a stick and then prodded the cows onto her property.
Ugh.
And then charged him $1 to get his cow back. Now, I know this seems crazy. This is actually a very common country living problem. Cattle disputes.
But it is. When I had my acreage, we had horses end up on our property all the time because they'd break through like the neighbor's gate or the fence. So it does happen.
By the end of 1903, Peter Gunness's brother Gust, his name was Gust, he shows up at the farm to retrieve his 5-year-old niece, Swanhild. Now, if you remember Swanhild, she was the only surviving child of Peter Gunness because Belle had killed his youngest daughter, also named Jenny.
Yeah.
Gus shows up. He says, I want my niece. She's 5 years old. I don't trust you with her. He hated Belle and also strongly suspected, like everybody else, that she had murdered Peter for the insurance money. Now, while he was there, Belle tried to convince him to stay. Hey, just stay here, crash here, and help me around the farm. And he quickly turned that down. It was probably the salivating and breathing heavy that turned him off of this offer. She notices he has a nice watch on. She starts stroking the meat grinder. You could sleep here for the night. Look at my Princeton.
Your Gronstel is looking quite extended. We should
I bet hers was the size of like a fleshy golf ball. So large she had to polish it. Now, obviously, Gus declines this offer. He likes being alive. He's like, no, I think I'll stay alive. He does somehow manage to pry Swanhild away from her. She agrees and lets him take her back with him to Minneapolis. We'll never hear from Swanhild again for the remainder of this story. Fortunately, though, or unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it, Swanhild is going to be the only surviving child to ever survive living with Belle Gunness.
Really? Oh, man. Well, and that's saying a lot because she's the only one that got away.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yes. So it's a good thing we never heard from her again.
Yeah.
In February of 1904, Belle posted an ad in the Chicago Norwegian paper for immigrants, and this paper is called the Scandinavian. What is Jess laughing at? Norwegian.
Oh,
Norwegian.
Norwegian.
Yeah, Norwegian. Yeah.
Yeah, Norwegian. Sure. No. But sure. Yeah. No.
It was a Chicago Norwegian. I didn't know we had to be fancy. The Norwegian paper for immigrants called the Scandinavian. I bet Jess also calls tomatoes tomatoes. Get over yourself, Jess. Let me read this for the 5th fucking time. February 1904. Belle Gunness posts an ad in the Chicago Norwegian paper for immigrants called the Scandinavian. And in that ad, she's looking for a farm laborer to help her around the farm. And that's when, not long after, 30-year-old Norwegian immigrant Olaf Lindboe shows up on the farm to answer the call in the paper. He does, unfortunately for him, though, show up with all his belongings, including $600 in cash, which is equivalent to $21K today. Now, you're probably wondering, why the fuck would you bring all your stuff to this? Times were different then. When you went to a job, you were like, I'm here forever. Hi, I'm Olaf, and I'm here to exist for all eternity and shovel cow shit. Here's all my things. Where do you want me to sleep? That's just how things worked back then. So he's got $600 in cash on him, which is equivalent to $21,000 today. Now, Belle hired Olaf on the spot, and he sets to work immediately working around the farm with the cattle and the pigs and the corn and the bacon. Pretty quickly after his arrival, though, neighbors and townsfolk start noticing that Belle and Olaf seem extremely close, far closer than any hired farmhand and farm owner should be. It turns out he'd been tending to more than corn kernels. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. He was also helping with the husbandry of the cattle, probably.
Been tending to a cunt colonel.
Jeez.
April 1904. 2 months after arriving on the farm, poor Olaf, he writes a letter to his father back in Norway. He's telling his father, hey, I'm going to be getting married soon, and I'm now basically the master of this farm. And no more than 6 months after sending that letter to his father, Olaf Lindboe fell off the face of the earth and vanished.
Shocking.
Without a trace. When asked about where he had gone, where's that helper that you seem to be fucking? She tells one neighbor, quote, he has gone to St. Louis to see the World's Fair. She told another neighbor, quote, he has gone home to see the new king of Norway crowned. And then when Olaf's father wrote from Norway asking, where's my son? She wrote back, quote, he went west and took a homestead someplace. That was the end of Olaf.
That was just it. That was it.
1900s, early 1900s. That was it. They'll just go, oh, okay.
Wow.
Now, less than a year after Olaf Lindboe vanished off the face of the earth, the literal exact same thing happened to a young man by the name of Henry Gerholt. In April of 1905, Henry showed up with all his possessions and all the money to his name, which totaled $1,500 then, equaling $115K today. Showed up there to work and to live in the house on the farm. In August, just 4 months later, Henry Gerholt went missing. Fell off the face of the earth.
Mysterious.
Now, when asked where he was by neighbors, Belle responded that he had went to Chicago. I don't know. He left for Chicago. Oh, one other thing about Henry here. Belle was seen on numerous occasions after he vanished, walking around town in Henry's fur coat.
Oh.
And people noticed that kind of thing back then because you just had one coat.
Yeah.
Right? And you traded like a horse for it.
Right.
Or you fixed a wagon and somebody had to make it.
It wasn't like how easy, convenient it is today to just go down to a store and you've got 7 of those like in your closet. It took tailoring and hand making, and somebody in town knew that they made it for you, and it was probably a part of a conversation because they're like, "Oh, what do you do? What did you do today? Oh, I've been working on the several yards of fabric for Belle Gunness' coat." So people knew what was going on.
It's made out of an entire buffalo. We even had to use the meat. We used that to make her a pair of panties.
Meat panties?
Got a little like protective cup in the front to hold her schmick-and-schmog.
Oh, gosh.
It's the size of a golf ball. Did you hear about that? They're talking about it all over town. Anyway, she polishes it. When they ask her, hey, why are you wearing Henry's coat? She says he left it behind. Said he didn't want it. And that's not true.
No.
Even today, if somebody leaves like a North Face coat behind, they're going to call you and be like, hey, forgot my coat. Got to turn around and come back and get my coat.
Yep.
It's a North Face. And I don't mean to brag.
Right.
But I do have a North Face coat.
Nice.
It doesn't fit me anymore because I'm a fucking fat ass now.
Mm.
But I keep it just to let people know.
Yeah. Okay.
Heaven has tried on so many occasions to get me to get rid of that coat.
And you just won't do it. Is it like a last bastion? Like you give that up and it feels like you gave up on your goals to get healthier kind of a thing?
If I give it up, like what's this all been about?
Yeah. Right.
It lets me know, it hangs there, lets me know that I achieved excellence once before and I can do it again. Late August 1905, just a few weeks after Henry Gerholt vanishes, Belle changes her ad that's been running in the paper from wanting a farmhand to wanting a potential husband. And we were able to get that ad out of the old newspaper, and it went like this, quote, wanted. And I'm going to read this, by the way, in an old European English woman's voice, which is in no way what Belle Gunness sounded like.
Okay.
But it's really all I've got.
All right.
And you should also know that halfway through this, it will probably also go in and out of racist Chinese impression and Australian.
Okay.
Wanted. A woman who owns a beautifully located and valuable farm in first-class condition. Wants a good and reliable man as a partner in same. Some little cash is required, and will be furnished first-class security.
Nice.
Some little cash is required? I'm already out. Bitch, I told you I had a North Face coat. What more proof do you need that I've got drip?
I think back then, like the whole point, we kind of chuckled about it, but people showed up to these types of things as there's a sense of permanence to it, right? Like they showed up and they're like, I might age out I might live there till I'm 80 kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So there was value to the person as far as, it goes.
The mailman later said, after all of her horrible crimes came to light, that during this period after she placed this ad, Belle was getting up to 10 letters every single day.
Wow.
Every day. This time period's wild. You didn't even know what each other looked like.
Yeah.
Like you just had to show up and cross your fingers and hope they didn't answer the door looking like a beaver. And they didn't have like an extra finger growing out of their forehead or something. Or they had all their fingers. Most people didn't even have fingers in, I don't think. I think you lost a lot of them by the time you were 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And then you just fucked and made a life together. The end. That's how the late 1800s, early 1900s was, answering these like now, we're really spoiled. You swipe right or left. I've never been on those apps, but I've heard about them, and I reckon it's probably got first off, you got pictures, which is already like a huge step above. On this, you had to see somebody. You had to read somebody explaining themselves. And if people can manipulate pictures on Facebook the way they can, imagine what people can do with word.
Yeah.
You ever seen those Facebook pictures where men and women both do this? They put a filter on, and all of a sudden it's just a set of eyes and a nose and a mouth. And there's like everything around it looks like it was painted in acrylic paint.
Also, you had to take them at their word of what you read back then. There was no way to like check into somebody or to do background,
You'd have to write to her neighbor.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would. Oh, I just solved. That's how you're like, first off, don't tell them why. Can I get your neighbor's address? And be like, explain this woman. What does she look like?
There was a thing that happened back in those days, though. I would say with people of means more than anything, but they would send somebody to the town, and they would do reconnaissance. Like, if they were looking into a guy, they would send somebody to the town and ask amongst the people, like the shop owner nearby or, his associates, to kind of get that look even before the person showed up.
They did that?
Yeah. I mean, people of means did it, but I don't think Belle's doing that. He shows
back up after the recon like, yikes, bro.
Yeah.
Over the next 2 years, an unknown number of men would vanish on Belle Gunness's farm. At the very least, we know for a fact, at the very least 12. Just one after another, like lemmings. Drop, just one after another. Knock on the door, go into the house, nobody ever sees them again. The money that she ended up getting away with totaled over $1 million when inflation is accounted for.
Wow.
To let you know how much of their belongings she was stacking up later, she would hire a farmhand by the name of Emil Greening, young man. Emil was actually dated Belle's daughter, Jenny, for a while. But Emil Greening would say on the witness stand that he remembered there was a room in the house that had 15 men's travel trunks stacked in it.
Dang.
And that it was also what little space didn't have stacked travel trunks covered in men's clothing.
See,
just full of it.
Right there. And maybe you're going to get to it. But to me, like, it's impossible to be neighbors with people back then and not know their stuff. Yeah. Like, it makes...
these neighbors, by the way, they said they saw these men come and never saw them go.
Okay.
Like
All
come,
right.
like as in like show up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll leave my extreme opinions at the door.
No, you're making a good point.
No, I figured you'd probably address it more. So
We'll talk about that more in the last episode, the next one.
okay.
But yeah, all these men are coming and going. We'll talk about that in part 7.
Yeah. I just picked up. I was in my own head, and then I just picked up on what you said. So
No, this is going to be a 3-parter.
Oh.
Next one will be the last part. I'm telling you this for a reason. About
Okay.
the trunks and the clothing. I'm covering a large number of victims on this show, right?
Yep.
But there are, without a doubt, more that we don't even know about. Like, if you look online, there's a whole list of men that went missing around this time, responding to ads in newspapers. So we just suspect of them. God knows how many responded that we don't even know about.
Well, and the interesting thing about that is you would think that, well, we could follow the money because of the insurance payouts and stuff, but no, she shifted models, right? She no longer did the insurance thing necessarily. Like, these people were coming cash
She's just
in
straight
hand.
up stealing.
Yeah.
And she would also, in these letters, like, because they would write back and forth for a little bit,
Mhm.
she would say, when you come, bring all your money, withdraw everything, every penny that you have, bring it. And also, it gets worse because I know you're probably getting ready to be like, this didn't throw any red. She also would be like, don't tell anybody where you're going.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is she somehow masterfully convinced them to just do it all in secret, which is amazing.
Yeah. But men being fucking idiots, just like, pussy. Okay, all my money. I won't tell nobody. We do sex. The one thing never changes.
We're predictable.
And we'll get into later, like the methods of death and everything, because we actually don't find that out. You got to keep in mind, I don't know if you know the story of Belle Gunness, but the only people that know the truth here is Belle Gunness.
Yep.
And as to whether or not Belle Gunness got away with this is going to be a huge topic of debate in part 3. The story gets more and more interesting, but we know for a fact there's people dead here that we don't even know their identity. And they also found a lot of men's belongings that they never found the identity of.
Okay.
Like I said, many were seen showing up there on the farm. Most of the time, they were never spotted leaving. Around this time, she also starts keeping her curtains and shutters closed 24/7. House is completely blacked out. In December of 1905, John Moe, a 40-year-old bachelor from the Elbow Lake, Minnesota area, answers the call for love, carrying with him $1,000, which is $35K today.
Jeez.
When asked why he's got so much money before he leaves, he tells the neighbors, I'm going to get married and I'm going to pay her mortgage off. Meanwhile, he gets there, right? He's there for a little bit. He doesn't kill her. She doesn't kill him immediately. She's telling everybody behind his back, that's not my boyfriend, not my husband. He's my cousin and he's just visiting from out of town. Which does it does one big thing. It relieves suspicion whenever he's going to fucking go missing.
Yep.
Oh, he just went back home. That was my cousin. Remember, I told you he was here visiting.
Yeah, he left in the middle of the night.
Just 1 week after arriving at the Gunness farm, John Moe vanishes. He is never seen again. Early 1906, 39-year-old man by the name of George Anderson responds to Belle's ad in the paper. Now, George was a fellow immigrant from Norway, and he had settled in Missouri, where he had actually made a really good life for himself. He was very successful. Had a lot of money. He travels from his home there in Missouri to LaPorte, Indiana. They're the farm, Belle's farm. And while he's there, they're having dinner together, and Belle brought up her mortgage. George says, yeah, we get married if this works out. It's the first night. Let's talk for a minute. You don't look really what you kind of described yourself as, but let's talk for a minute. I don't really have a lot of choices. I'm just looking I'm looking for somebody to die with.
Yeah.
Here, a couple years down the road. But let's see where it goes. He says, if we do end up getting married, yeah, I'll pay off your mortgage. They finish dinner. George goes up to his guest bedroom on the second floor and gets in bed to go to sleep. In the middle of the night, George Anderson wakes up and he finds Belle Gunness standing beside him at the bed, holding a lit candle. George later said this is the only man that will ever survive Belle Gunness. Well, there's one other one, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. He wakes up in the middle of the night, finds Belle standing there, holding a lit candle. He said that she had the most sinister look on her face that he's ever seen, and that she stared at him for a second after he woke up, mumbled something, and then just turned on her heels and very quickly ran out of the room.
Like she wasn't expecting him to wake up?
Yes.
Kind of thing? Okay.
How
Ugh,
scary is that?
that's ominous.
That would be scary if my 4-year-old did it
Yeah.
to me in the middle of the night. First
Yep.
off, how did you light that candle? All of our lighters around here are child safety proof. So I guess it wouldn't be the same, but just this donkey of a woman turning and quickly running out of the room, probably thinking she's quiet, but it sounds like cattle are loose inside the house. It would be scary. Terrified, George laid there until the first sign of daylight, never went back to sleep, never even tried. Then he got up, got dressed, and left the house without saying goodbye. He also left all his belongings.
Smart, man.
He went straight to the train station, hopped on a train to Missouri, and never went back.
Smartest man.
In the summer of 1906, Belle hires a local man. He was a Polish immigrant by the name of William Brogiski. Hires him with one goal. I just need one thing. I need you to dig 3 holes in the muck of that fenced-in hog pen. Which is odd to say the least.
Just to dig 3 holes.
Oh, another thing. She was very exact about the dimensions of these holes. She wanted 3 of them. She wanted them to be 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 4 feet deep.
That's very specific.
Yes.
Also interesting that she would have him dig holes in there because knowing this was in the pigs.
The pig pen.
Pigs. Yeah, because pigs will eat a person anyway. So it's interesting.
Oh, they do. Yes.
Yeah.
But pigs also get full, and I don't know that they eat bones.
Oh, good question. I don't know. Yeah, how much they'll eat. I think they do eat bones, but I'm not sure.
But to be fair, if you were a detective or a police officer and you were suspecting something, you probably wouldn't check for bodies in the pig pen.
Right.
Buried in the pig pen.
Yeah.
When William naturally asked, why do you need me to dig 3 massive body-sized holes in the pig pen, Belle just told him they were rubbish pits. She needs to bury some garbage.
Doubt it.
The same year, at the end of 1906, Belle's 16-year-old adopted daughter, this is the one that she had been raising since she was a baby. Jenny's her name. Remember the one from part 1? She took it from a sick woman?
Yep.
Jenny is now 16 years old, and this is also the one that if you see pictures oftentimes on websites and stuff, they'll say it's Belle Gunness. It is not. If it's a blonde-headed young woman, that's really a beautiful young lady. That is Jenny Gunness. That is not Belle.
Not the same. Right.
But Jenny starts telling people that her mother, Belle, had arranged for her to go to college in California. And so Belle has told Jenny, hey, guess what? You're going to college. You're going to be going to college. Let people know. Start letting people around town know that you're going to college. What I've done, Jenny, is I've arranged for a professor from this college in California to come and get you and take you across country. So go ahead, pack your stuff up. He'll be here any day. Pack your stuff up and beginning letting all your friends, anybody you cross on the street, just be like, hey, just so you know, I won't be here in a few days.
I see.
I'm going to college. Look, I know it sounds a lot like an alibi, like a reason for you to go missing, but it's not. You're just going to college, Jenny.
Yeah.
Naturally, just a few days before Christmas of that year, Jenny Gunness vanishes. When her boyfriend, he worked at the carriage shop in town. He was a worker there at the carriage shop named John Widener. He shows up to see her. Belle tells him, oh, she's not here anymore. The professor from California showed up this morning and took her with him. You're never going to see her again. I would imagine if you wrote, she wouldn't respond. Like I said, Jenny Gunness was never seen again. Well, let me rephrase that. I will show some of my cards at this point because Jenny Gunness was seen again. When everything comes to light, they discover Jenny's remains in the hog pit.
Oh.
She had been dismembered with an axe.
Okay.
Arms and legs and head cut off, piled on top of each other and buried in the hog pen. This is her daughter that she has raised from a baby.
Jeez.
Now, if you're wondering, like, why would she do this? Obviously, there's no financial gain. She didn't have life insurance on Jenny. A lot of people suspect, we don't have any proof of this, but people suspect that maybe Jenny became privy to what Belle was doing and confronted her about it or asked her about it.
Okay.
Or Belle was just jealous because Jenny was pretty and had her whole life young. And this is an old bitch. This is just an old grouchy, murderous bitch that doesn't care anything about anything except belongings and wealth.
Yeah.
Probably one of the saddest parts of this story is Jenny Gunness's death, I would say, because she seemed like a very intelligent kind of, she had the whole world in front of her.
Sort of that youthful ignorance, youthful bravado, where I'm sure once she figured it out, she didn't know better to not say anything. Like, so she probably said something, in emotionally, like, I know what's going on. And then that was her undoing. You know what I mean?
That's it. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
And it ain't nothing to Belle Gunness because she doesn't have feelings like that for anybody.
Right.
Everybody to Belle Gunness is just a money sign. How can I exploit this person and then get rid of the problem? Suck them dry, stop them from existing.
Yep.
Very narcissistic. Just the world revolves around me.
Yeah.
July 1907. Belle needs help around the farm. Obviously, now that Jenny is gone, Jenny had been helping her here and there with the farm. But now that Jenny's gone, she is literally completely alone there, aside from Philip, the little boy. And that's when she hires a farmhand by the name of Ray Lamphere. And Ray Lamphere is going to be the second most important person in this story.
Okay.
Ray Lamphere was a 37-year-old, simple-minded, stupid fucking idiot. But he was a hard worker, and he was willing to do anything that Belle Gunness asked him to do. On top of that, he was an alcoholic, a gambling addict, and a known fan of prostitutes. Ray Lamphere was kind of the town joke. He came from a very prominent family and had just kind of fucked his life up. Just an old booze hound. Is 37 old? Just he's crossing that threshold into getting. Had he never met Belle Gunness, his life would have been the town drunk that spends the night in the jail the Otis.
Yep. Yeah.
He immediately moves into Belle's house in the guest bedroom on the second floor there. And Ray Lamphere pretty quickly decides that he loves Belle. And according to several townsfolk around, it did seem like Belle Gunness and Ray Lamphere were dating. They were often seen in town together, shopping, hanging out, eating together. It did look like a legitimate relationship. And to Ray Lamphere, it was. He took it very seriously. He said he loved Belle.
Yep.
Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Belle is still looking for love and continues placing ads in the newspapers to attract men. Now, these ads are no longer just in that Norwegian newspaper. She places them in the matrimonial section of all the daily newspapers in Chicago and also in the matrimonial section of newspapers around many large cities in the Midwest. So she's running multiples. And those new ads went like this. Quote, personal, comely widow who owns a large farm in one of the finest districts in LaPorte, Indiana, desires to make the acquaintance of a gentleman equally well provided, with view of joining fortunes. No replies by letter considered, unless the sender is willing to follow answer with personal visit. Triflers need not apply. My clit is huge, Belle Gunness.
What if you're a trifler? You read that line, you're like, darn it.
Yeah, is that ever? Fuck. Also, kind of like, this is the biggest trifler on earth at this point in time that's writing this, you fucking hypocritical bitch.
Yeah.
Triflers need not apply. Many men responded. So many. At the end of March in 1907, 50-year-old, this is going to be hard to say because of the guy's name and the word old is directly before it. 50-year-old all Budsberg. Now,
Ola.
50-year-old old Budsberg shows up on Belle's doorstep, answering her ad in the paper, and he's holding $1,000 in cash, which is $35K today. Ola was from Iowa. Ola was from Iowa. Ola was from Iola, Wisconsin. He owned a lot of land there. But before he left, he sold his farm to his sons and told them he was, quote, going to LaPorte to manage a farm. He also withdraws a large amount of money, several $1,000s. And on April 16th, 1907, a little over 2 weeks after arriving in LaPorte, Ola Budsberg is seen at the First National Bank of LaPorte with Belle Gunness, and he's there for one reason, to withdraw all of his money. All of it. She wanted to suck him dry, both in the sack and on the street.
I knew that. I knew it.
This is the last time that Ola B. Budsberg would be seen alive on this day, April 16th, 1907, at the bank here. His two grown sons back in Wisconsin, their names were Matthias and Oscar. They do eventually find out that their father hadn't gone to manage a farm. He had run off to Indiana to be with a woman, specifically a woman by the name of Belle Gunness. They write Belle a letter. Where's my father at? Where is our dad? She writes back and tells them that she had, quote, never seen or met their father.
Dun, dun. Yeah. Again, this is where, like, having somebody in town to verify would be helpful.
Well, one thing she does here, yeah, which that's true. But if you'll notice, Belle Gunness, aside from Jenny, never killed locals.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, so everybody could only guess about why there was a revolving door at her place. Nobody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the one person she did kill that was a local, not counting Peter, Jenny, she set up a story
as if she was going
beforehand.
away. Right.
Jenny unknowingly was going around giving Belle's alibi for why she was missing.
Right.
Going around telling people, Mom's got me a good a spot in a good college in California on the other side of the United States. I'll be leaving forever soon. So if I happen to go missing, don't worry.
Yeah.
Friday, January 3rd, 1908. Andrew Helgian. Helgi. You know what's weird about having to pronounce the names is I do this research and I write all this stuff and I never have to say them out loud until we sit down to record.
Mm-hmm.
And names that I've suddenly seen 1,000,000 times for a week or two prior to recording, I now have to pronounce them, and I realize probably should have practiced that before we hit the little red circle.
Andrew Helgelian.
Andrew Helgelian. On Friday, January 3rd, 1908, Andrew Helgelian, a farmer from South Dakota, shows up on Belle Gunness's porch holding everything he owned. It's one after another. Holding everything he owned, and he also had deposit slips containing all the savings of his entire life, which totaled $2,800. Actually, $2,839 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew had once, like everybody else, had responded to Belle's ad, but Andrew Helgelian is the one that Belle strung along the longest in terms of writing. She had been talking to him for a year and a half. They had actually started in mid-1907, talking back and forth via letter.
Oh, so this is a long con.
Yeah, this is a very long con. Now, like I said, Bill had been trying to set the trap on him forever, longer than any other man. And we do have one of the letters from Belle to Andrew. It survived what will later happen. And here is that letter. This is from Belle to Andrew. To the dearest friend in the world. No woman in the world is happier than I am. I know that you are now to come to me and be my own. I could tell from your past letters that you are the man that I want. It does not take one long to tell when to like a person, and you I like better than anyone in the world, I know. Think how we will enjoy each other's company. You, the sweetest man in the world, we will be all alone with each other. Can you conceive of anything nicer? I think of you constantly. When I hear your name mentioned, and this is when one of the dear children speaks of you, or I hear myself humming it with the words of an old love song, it is beautiful music to my ears. My heart beats in wild rapture for you, Andrew. I love you. Come now, and be prepared to stay forever. Belle Gunness, I have a huge clit.
You should read audiobooks in that voice.
She was right. She was being honest about one thing in this letter, and that's the stay forever part.
Mm-hmm.
Because Andrew Helgian does stay on this farm forever. After getting this letter, Andrew makes his way to LaPorte, Indiana from South Dakota. And on the morning that he arrived, Ray Lamphere, who you recall is her dumbass farmhand that's in love with her, sees Andrew arrive and is absolutely heartbroken when Belle tells him, hey, you need to get out of that room upstairs and move to the barn. You're sleeping in the barn now. My new suitor is here. He's going to be taking your room, Ray.
That has to rankle the sensitive sensibilities of Ray.
It very much does. This is going to be a big issue in part 3. We have a quote from Ray Lamphere here later on. And this impression that I'm doing probably is actually fairly accurate to Ray Lamphere, considering he was Indiana born and raised farm boy. Indiana, very close to Kentucky. A lot of the same kind of accents. But this is a quote from Ray on this, him being kicked out of the house and being forced to move to the barn. Quote, well, I mean, we got along all right before that, and she used to come to my room at nighttime, but after he came, she had no use for me.
Sounds just like you.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Probably, I guarantee you this guy loved watching crowns melt on the stove. Ray did move into the barn and just continued on with his farm work, but did so extremely butthurt. He was in love, and then he realized Belle didn't love him. She just fucked him a lot. And that's true. She did just fuck him a lot. What's funny about that is if you picture it, I want to put this in your head. Ray Lamphere, we got pictures of him too. Very skinny little man. Frail little man. Belle Gunness, Shrek in a dress. He had to have bruising around his pelvis.
Size back then, though, was like a different thing, right? It was like an indicator of vitality, you know? No one was worried about how clogged her arteries were, probably.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, oh, she doesn't have tuberculosis. Nice. That's fucking hot. The last 3 women I was with had tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Say it loudly. Let me see you open up those lungs. January 6, 1908. Belle and Andrew Helgian.
You got it. Yep. That's it.
Belle and Andrew Helgian. Belle and Andrew Helgian.
Helgalian.
Show up. Helgalian. Belle, January 6, 1908. Belle and Andrew Helgalian show up to put the deposit slips that he brought with him into the First National Bank, and they begin the waiting process for the money to arrive from South Dakota. So what you had to do back in these days is you couldn't just, if you had a community trust account, you couldn't go on vacation to Florida, walk into a community trust bank and be like, hey, I've got $400 I'd like to take out. That's not how it worked. You had a deposit slip. So what you would do is you would go to the bank, they would give you a deposit slip, and then when you got to wherever you're going, you would go to that bank and give them a deposit slip, and they would go, okay, cool, we'll send this to them, and then they'll send us the money. And then you could go and pick up your money a few days later. And maybe you're wondering, well, why wouldn't they just pull the money out and take it with them to wherever they were going and then deposit it? And to that, I don't know.
Here's a fun fact to know and share. Did you know that in Australia, and this is true, our Australian listeners can confirm this. Did you know that in Australia, when you go to withdraw money, they ask you what it's for?
How is that any of their goddamn business?
Don't ask me. There's actually a viral video that's going around right now, at least I saw. And it was just a montage of a guy going in and asking for a withdrawal, and they were always like, all right, and what is this for? And he's like, does it matter? Well, we just have to ask. Does that matter though? We have to ask. It's wild.
But that's only like for large amounts, right?
Actually, I think it's more common with cash transactions over $10,000 or more.
Still, none of their business.
Yeah, and it all gets reported to an Australian federal government tracking agency called AUSTRAC. So I don't know why I said that. Because I think
it's interesting.
Well, she rolled into these banks so easily, and like nobody, like if you walked into a bank today and had somebody with you standing there and you're like, I want to empty all of my bank accounts, that teller would probably be like, 1 sec, I got to talk to my manager.
You'd look over like the counter to see if she's got a gun to her hip.
Yeah. They may ask a question. I would assume that there's maybe some, like, I don't know, clientele stewardship protocol that they would, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know in the States if they do anything, but it does seem like if somebody came in attached to your hip, that the question would be asked, are you doing this under duress? I would have to think.
And not only that, man, but she did this multiple times at the same bank over a period of years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So on this day, Tuesday, January 14th, 1908, 11 days after his arrival, Belle and Andrew visit the First National Bank of LaPorte again, where he picks up, finally, the $2,839 that he had sent for from his bank in South Dakota. This equals today $102,000.
That's another thing that kind of blows my mind about all these guys is at the time, these guys were a bit unique in that they had big savings. A lot of people were living paycheck to paycheck, but these guys all were relatively frugal. You'd think it was amazing that she was able to pull the wool over so many people that were financially astute.
Stable.
Yeah.
They're clearly not like idiots.
Right. I think there was just that draw of that she had property, right, that she portrayed stability, and that this was a productive venture. Maybe that's what it was. It was companionship.
Or maybe they were a bit of gold digging themselves.
Yes, that's what I was kind of getting at. Is they see the land and everything as inheritable, so they're willing to put up their $2,000.
And back then, that mattered more than who you were married to.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, it was much more familial. It was much more, what am I extending for my progeny? Yeah, I can see that.
The person you were married to is just who you made babies with. Like, it was no more personal than that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should make a few people before we die. Plus, we need the farmhands.
Yep.
And then you got tuberculosis. This day at the bank, Tuesday, January 14th, 1908, is the last day that Andrew Helgelien will ever be seen alive. Afterwards, though, Belle continued to make deposits into this account. In the months following, she made one deposit for $500, another for $700. So it's safe to say probably that's the deposits of two other men that have been lost from history, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine that those, by the way, total $18,000 and $25,000. I don't think it's too far out of reality to assume this is probably just two more poor bastards that fell into her grasp.
Yeah.
On February 3rd, 1908, Belle either fires Ray Lamphere or he quits. We don't know. That reason has been lost to history. But on this day, February 3rd, 1908, for whatever reason, Ray Lamphere is no longer employed by Belle Gunness, and it was a nasty breakup. There are several different claims depending on which newspaper you're reading. We don't know which one is true, if any of them. That being said, we know for a fact that Ray left the farm this day in a hurry, and he was pissed off when he did so. He actually left all his clothes and tools behind. A week later, Belle hired a replacement farmhand to replace Ray. This man's name was Joseph Maxon, and moved to Joseph Maxon into the second floor guest bedroom that was now empty because obviously Andrew doesn't need it anymore either. Meanwhile, Ray Lamphere goes to the local attorney in town and this attorney, he's wanting his stuff back. This attorney advises him, hey, go to the farm and tell Belle to give you your clothes and tools back or you'll file a lawsuit against her. Ray does so. And when he does, Belle pretty much tells him to fuck off. He doesn't get any of his stuff back. And after Ray leaves, Belle contacts the county sheriff, Officer Albert Smutzer, and tells Albert, hey, this old employee that I've got is harassing me. 1 month later, in March of 1908, Ray Lamphere is arrested for trespassing on Belle Gunness's property. She has pretty much got away with stealing this man's stuff now. And he is very jaded.
Yeah.
He's very jaded. And Belle, at this point, thinks she's unstoppable. She is unstoppable. I mean, why wouldn't she feel that way? She's got away with countless murders, countless insurance fraud scams, and she also feels unstoppable probably because she could run through a brick wall without slowing her down. Something, however, is brewing back in South Dakota. It turns out that Andrew how did you say it?
Helgelian.
It turns out that Andrew Helgelian had a brother back there in South Dakota by the name of Azel, Allele. Is the S silent? L? It's spelled A-S-L-E.
Asla. Probably Asla.
It turns out Andrew had a brother back in South Dakota by the name of Asla.
Or Allah.
And Asla.
Okay.
And Asla was not the type of man to just lay on his back and accept that his brother had just gone up and went missing. He is not the kind of guy that's going to let this fly. This is the kind of man this is the kind of brother you want. He will travel to the gates of hell to find out what happened to his brother, and he does. Good. Asla was determined and smart, and Asla Helgelian will be the one to crack the Belle Gunness case wide the fuck open. Unfortunately, more people are going to die first. And that is where we will pick back up for the finale of our series on Belle Gunness, the old hog-headed hoe of LaPorte.
Well, she's still doing damage. Can't wait for part 3. You think it'll just be a 3-parter? Is this just a 3-parter?
Yeah, it'll be a 3-parter. I'll definitely be able to wrap this up in the next one.
Okay.
Oh, show.
Well, if you like Kent,
I have a North Face coat.
You definitely have to like Kent then. Give him a 5-star review just for his coat sake.
Yeah.
5
Started
stars.
from the bottom, now we're in the middle class.
I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
North Face.
So, bye.